Oh, I'm live. Well, that doesn't really matter. What happened? I we're we're still a little bit on the gobsmack side of things. If you've clicked this video, you're like, "Oh, what is he talking about?" Yeah, legitimately, what happened? Well, here's the American Advertising Awards. I'm just gonna go on over here real quick. So, in the American Advertising Awards, in case you guys don't know, if you're not familiar with it, you enter content into the awards, and it's pretty straightforward. There's not much to it. It is what it is, right? And so, as a production company, we've now started working a little bit more like an agency, and so we decided let's go ahead and just enter some content. We've done this before, and we entered this campaign, several videos. Campaign wise, it was 3, as a matter of fact. No, it wasn't. It was 5. It was 5 total, but it was like 3 15s, a 30, 4 total, 3 15s, a 30, and a BTS type segment. And I'll talk about some of that stuff. It was for a project we got hired to do for Cuba. Now, this is the same client. If you guys have been around on this channel before, we did a crazy video for them where we had a guy dressed up as Genghis Khan, and he was walking down the street in our city of Mobile, Alabama. Pretty cool spot. Did really well for them, helped them sell out pretty well. And I did some things. But in this instance, something different happened. Um, that says best of show. It's backwards. Sorry. That says best of show. We won best of show. So what does that mean? That means that we won overall, not just video best of show. We won complete and total best of show. We won everything, the whole kit and caboodle. And I think the rest of the room was just as shocked as we were. And it was one of those moments where it was like, hey, you guys have done it. But as much as that accolade matters, we have a dirty little secret. And I'm going to talk about it coming up. But first, what I'd like for you to do is watch the 30-second. So here's the 30-second spot. And I'll go over a little bit more. But this is our 30-second spot for the Cuba exhibit that is appearing here in Mobile, as you Yankees might say, in Mobile, Alabama. Here's the spot. Okay, so that was it. That was the spot that we had going on there. If you guys, I wish I could walk through it. It's a little bit tricky. I was actually trying to use Riverside, which is my preferred streaming platform. It was not very kind for showing back video. So that's a 720 version. I'll post a link if you'd like to see the actual video. I'll throw it up on our channel too, or you can go visit my clients. I'm sure they would love it if you popped by and said hello, and you can go see it there. Now, so why is that such a big deal? Well, a couple of things. That spot was very difficult to make. It was a big challenge. It was not easy. There was lots and lots of frustrating sides of things that went into it, but we were able to pull it off. And why does that matter? Well, if you're a video production company or a small agency or whatever else, to be able to service your clients and give them what they need in terms of product and quality, to be able to generate that and make it happen, that's one thing. But for a project like that to win best of show is another. Now, this isn't a self-aggrandizing Ric Flair style pat on the back, but instead it is hopefully something that will inspire you. One of the things is, as I mentioned earlier, pre the spot, we have a dirty little secret about that spot. And I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to reveal the secret in it. So if you are just watching this video and just catching up with it at the very beginning, if you're live, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's a couple things we need to talk about with it. So first off, Cuba. So you guys understand this is for a non-for-profit client. They're called the Explorium. They're a science center. I'm sure everybody that's in a major market has one of these, or a foreign market, doesn't matter where you are. I'm sure you have one of these types of centers somewhere. And so that's what it was for. And the side of that that's fascinating to us, or that is exciting to us or interesting to us, is that they always, Josh and Don, the two in charge of it, they let us they don't kind of. They let us do what we want to do. Now we have to pitch it, but we can come up with some zany ideas. This one was one of our more zany, and here's why. We had an opportunity to go with them, with the client, to Cuba. So we got to travel down to Cuba, and we're on a very specific type of, we're not there on a personal trip, but we're on like an ambassador call. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but we were allowed to go down. And so we got to travel down to Cuba, which is awesome. So part of our budget had to go to that. Now, when I say this is a modest budget, it's a very modest budget. I mean, we were squeezing nickels out of pennies, or pennies out of nickels. No, we were squeezing nickels out of pennies. It was very tricky and it was very challenging. So in order to pull this video off, we're going to go down to Cuba. I wish I had loaded some photos into here. I could show you some of that stuff. It'd be fun. If you watch our demo reel, there's some behind the scenes stuff if you want to see some of the behind the scenes Cuba bits. So we're getting to go down to Cuba, right? So let me guys inform you of some things I didn't know when prepping to travel internationally, but more importantly, to a communist country. Some things you might want to consider. One, they don't like cameras at all. They don't. In fact, it was very difficult, and we went through a lot of different channels to even figure this part out. So that's one process. The second process is because the budget's so limited, a chunk of our money is going for me and the Beard, Dr. Beard Fosse, to go with me, Jeff, down to Cuba. And so we had to figure that part out, but we still had to shoot some elements back in Mobile as well, in the city where our client's based, or where we're based too in this case. And so we had to think about both types of spots to pull this off. And so when you start planning these things out, you start looking at, well, how am I going to get a camera in? Well, they say you have to hire a local producer, and you go through the whole process. Well, every local producer that we contacted, they gave us back great feedback. They were very friendly, super awesome people. And I'll talk about the Cuba experience just a pinch. Maybe we'll do a live stream with Jeff and we'll talk more about it. But I'll tell you, the reality of it was for us that, and the scary part was that the budget that the producers, or the fixers, if you will, in Cuba were quoting was more than the entire budget we had for the entire commercial. It was a lot. And so for us, that was extremely limiting. And so we had to figure it out. Well, then the other side of things that got to be a challenge was how are we going to be able to film it? How are we going to be able to get gear in? Obviously, we're going to have to think very cleverly about that. And that was one approach that we went with. So I'm going to show the spot one more time, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. I want to work it in again. Now, pay attention to the spot, look at it, and see from a filmmaking perspective what you guys think about it. Again, there's Mobile footage, which is our local town, and then there's Cuba footage, and they're intercut. Let me click the little button. Here's the spot one more time, just so we can kind of get a reference. So I want you guys to see how, I mean, it's a lot of shots. We were there for 4 days. We filmed 4 pieces of content, and we put this all together. So here. Now, part of the challenge in producing that was how are we going to get it into the country? And as I said earlier, what we faced was this idea that, or this this challenge that I don't know if we're going to get in. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off. I don't know if the cameras are going to work. I don't know how it's going to work. We researched everything we possibly could. And so again, a lot of times when you're working with your clients and you're thinking about these projects, you've got to figure out the best way to do it. And in our instance, this case, we were able to produce the spot, multiple pieces. Now there is a BTS element that's out there, and some of that stuff was shot in FX6, but this entire spot was, well, I'm using it to record. It was actually shot. The entire thing was shot on an iPhone. The thing that blows us away is winning Best in Show on an entire commercial. Because even when we came back to Mobile, where we weren't limited on cameras, we decided to see if we could produce a great commercial on the iPhone, because we've all seen it. And you all see the iPhone spots where they have like 64 different lens adapters onto the camera and their cinema lenses. We couldn't do that because that would draw the wrong attention down in Cuba. And we wanted to be able to get a very authentic, real vibe. We weren't trying to make propaganda films. We weren't trying to make, this needed to be an authentic, it didn't need to look like a tourism video either. It needed to feel authentic. And so our only approach was the iPhone, as I mentioned. Now, this is our little kit here. I'm going to set on my desk quietly as possible. And I'm going to go through and show you how we did it, and maybe you can chase it. So the fact that we won best of show, and one of the compliments we got, because they have these judges, and this particular judge was pretty high ranking guy in a big agency. He complimented the reason it won best of show is because they loved the flow of the spot. They loved how beautiful the cinematography was. Now we're all thinking, wait a second, iPhone? Really? This guy did that? That's your dirty secret? Well, duh. But the fact is that it won, and now it goes on to the next level of competition is a really big deal, right? Because I think as filmmakers, a lot of times we get stuck on gear. Certainly on this channel, we've been stuck on gear, and I've preached it before, but I'm here to say it again. I've said it, and now me and Jeff really wanted to prove to the world that you are the greatest asset, not your freaking camera. I really wanted to drop an F-bomb, but I'm trying to be a little bit nicer. But the reality of it is that's how it is. And thank you, Billy's Bacon, proud sponsor, I wish, of this channel. I wish Billy could sponsor us with bacon, and we could just have bacon giveaways. That would be amazing, Billy, since you're watching live. So yeah, because we were able to pull that off. So yeah, we're excited about winning best of show. Obviously that benefits our company, but more importantly, we're excited because we won best of show on an iPhone, ladies and gentlemen. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So I'm going to show you the kit. So we have this little kit here. This went with us. We do have an adapter that fit inside of there. And then I'll talk about those other parts. So we have this little kit we put together, built it on our own. Billy says he'll sponsor it with some bacon. Maybe we're going to have a bacon giveaway. Billy's Senior, I will be in touch with you, and we're going to talk about how we can figure that out, because I think that would be awesome. We'll do a bacon giveaway. So we did a couple of different bits to make this work. And I know we talk a little bit about gear. I think it's important. First off, I found an iPhone to HDMI adapter. Why is that important? Well, I needed a monitor. Now, I could have also taken a big rig down there with me, but I will say this. In Cuba, we had no monitor. We had no external recorder. We didn't cheat. Here in Mobile, we did use a monitor. So I found an iPhone to HDMI cable that allowed us to run it out of the phone and directly into a monitor. Then we hooked to wireless. Then we had a bigger monitor so that all of our clients could see it, because we did have a big group of clients. And it's weird when you have this tiny phone but they were behind it. They were behind the whole idea. So let me show you what we have inside of the kit. So one of the things that we did, if you guys don't know, I have not been on an iPhone in probably 10 years. That's not true. 8 years. I haven't been on an iPhone 8 years. I'm a big Google phone fan. Well, iPhone is the best performing video capture phone device that there is. And I don't care what others say. I have proof now for me. So I'm satisfied with that. And so with the iPhone side of it, we had to get a case. And what we went with was a Polar Pro case. I forget the exact name of it. We went with this case because I break phones regularly. And in fact, the entire joke of the office was that I was going to destroy the phone before we even got there. It was actually kind of terrifying, because I bought the phone. We shot in March of last year, bought the phone in February, and it was like the longest 30 days of my life. All I wanted to do was make sure the phone was not broken by the time we got down to Cuba. So we bought this case, obviously for me. Jeff is much better with phones. He had his as well. So we had two cameras going, two phones going. And so the case itself is cool because it locks, right? So you put your phone inside this little rubber gimmick and it locks it in. I'm not going to do it because, again, I'm recording the audio to the phone, and it locks it in. But what's great is, as filmmakers, it has lots of nice little bits. It's got some shoes on the side, which we definitely built out some rigs for. It has shoes on the top, or has threading on the top. So it's 1/4-20 on the top. It has 3 along the bottom. It has this little handle gimmick, which is fine. You can screw this little guy in like this, right? It does help. I used it a good bit there. It's got a shoe mount here, and it even has a little Allen key to help you crank things down. So you got to keep it tight. Very nice. It's very well built. It was expensive, but it was very well built. However, it also has another one on the bottom, another 1/4-20. It did allow us to build out the rig the way we wanted. In Cuba, it was perfect. I could get some great handheld shots. The stabilization inside the camera, we had to test that. That's a separate conversation. You got to test the apps. Filmic Pro is fine, but there's a better one that we like called P3. We also use the Moment app, and we liked it a good bit. So how did we stack the filtration? I did not bring the whole filter kit. We brought filters with us. So we got 68 mils, we got large size filters, 85 mils. And then we just shrank them down to fit with step down rings. And we landed on 67s, and they made an adapter, and I'll show you. We ended up getting these Moment lenses. So we just bought a set of lenses. And again, this is all prosumer stuff. It's back to composition and filming. It was almost like being an old school filmmaker again, and I liked it. We had all the technology, but we are still very limited. We had 3 lens set, 2 lenses. Maybe we only had 2 lenses. I think we had 2 lenses, a 2 lens set. So we did use the moment lenses. They're good. They're pretty good little optics. I wonder what would happen if I do. Oh yeah, there you go. Hey, they're pretty good little optics. They did what they need to do. So we had an 18 mil, which is really, as we figured out, not necessarily an 18 mil in terms of cinema prime. You guys probably already knew that. And then we also had a 58 mil, again from Moment. Super stoked on how they were able to provide us with these to make it work. And we got really lucky that they were in stock, because that was the other side of things. It's like the pre-order planning to make sure all this stuff was available was crucial. And so we were able to go through and get the 58 as well. Used it a good bit, as you could see. We tried to use the lenses as much as possible. Jeff had lenses we would swap back and forth. So we would do like a 2-person coverage mechanic, where one of us would be filming with the 18 mil, another one would be trying to get details and close-ups in the space. And then we had the filter adapter we got from them, which is basically mounted onto here. And so what happens is they have like a little rubber ring. It sounds like I'm making an ad for Moment. I wish they would sponsor us, maybe. Not that I want to shoot on cell phone for the rest of my life. Anyway, I can't do it without it being on the phone. Basically, like this slips on, and then it fits inside, and then you screw your filters on. That's how we did it, right? And so when you built out the phone, I guess I couldn't mount it. When you build out the phone, the other side of this too is you would pick your different lenses in order to build out the phone correctly. So a lot of times, if you put a 50 or you put the 18 on the proper size and it was an actual 18 or 18 for the cell phone, if you doubled it, you could get like a 35. That's why we only needed 2 lenses, if that makes sense to you guys. And then we had the filtration. I'll show you what it looked like. Sorry, I'm kind of bumbling with it somewhat here. Who cares? It's a Saturday morning, guys. So, geez, it's been a minute since we've done. There you go. So it would sit like this, as you guys can see. There's your profile, there's your whole rig, and then we'd have filtration on top of it. And the filtration that we ended up using was a Pro Mist, a circular Pro Mist. We had a polarizer, and then we had an ND, and Jeff can probably confirm some of that at some point. Like I said, we'll do a stream at some point and talk through it a little bit more. But just that little kit worked out really well. The other thing that we brought along that was interesting, Polar Pro made a ND for this case specifically. So if for some reason we didn't feel safe enough to bust out the lenses, or we were in a hurry, or we were doing low profile, occasionally we would use this. So it drops over top, and now you have a nice circle pole that you can, or a circle ND that you can play with, right? That was the crucial part of it, is that you had to go back through and remember that you had to make sure that everything was set correctly. And so it took a lot more time. And so, yes, there were some moments where I think we went back through a lot of the footage, and we went through moments where we wished we would have just 10 more minutes and we could have got the shot just right. But you're shooting doco style, and you're aggressive, and you're making it happen. And so we would run out of time in some of those spots. And so instead, what we had to do was use that from time to time. We used it very sparingly because we wanted to make sure we're using the lenses, because we preferred the look at the lenses to everything else. Now, the other key to this that we found out through a series of testing was that we tested a bunch of different apps. So we tested Filmic, we tested Moment, and we tested P3. We went with P3 because Filmic was charging an arm and a leg to use their software, and P3 did exactly what we needed to do. But that wasn't the issue. So we shot everything, we tested it, we were all very happy with it until it came time to edit. And the challenge we ran into when we sent this to the editor, the playback would stutter. And despite us shooting, and also we shot in 48 frames a second, which was amazing that it allowed us to do that, it still was embedding in the metadata. My understanding of this now is it was embedding in the metadata that it was a variable frame rate. So it was working as VFR. Well, the issue with VFR, if you don't know, when it hits a variable frame rate, you might be recording at 24, but then it might spike and it might drop, and it might spike and it might drop. Well, that created a stutter. So there's like this really great image we had looking up at the, we were in the Capitol building, which was amazing to see. And the camera was like spinning around. Well, you got that stuttery effect, right? Because the VFR. So in the post side of things, we didn't realize that was going to be an issue. We had transcoded everything to ProRes. We thought we were good to go. We shot ProRes. I mean, our phones were full of data. You couldn't bring anything with you. And we shot something like 30 gigs. That is not accurate. It was more than that. Why did I say 30 gigs? It was like 300 gigs or 400 gigs. It was something stupid, the two of us. And then you transcoded it and the file size were massive. Well, what we ended up doing after that side of things is we had to take everything over. So we had to find a solution. And our solution was to go back to Handbrake. If you guys remember Handbrake, it's been around for a while. So we jumped over to Handbrake. We got into it. And then we were able to basically break the VFR side of things. So the variable frame rate was able to get knocked out, and we were able to stabilize it and lock the footage into the intended frame rate, which was 48 frames a second, so that we had beautiful slow-mo upon playback. Then we were worried about noise correction because there was some noise challenges that came through it. So after the spot was cut, we had to go back in and do additional work using some AI software. We did use that Adobe product, and then we also used Topaz. And both of those performed differently. Some shots went really well through the Adobe AI. Some shots went really well through the Topaz. And it was a trial and error like everything else in order to get them as perfectly set as humanly possible. And it turned into a big challenge. The 15, so a gentleman just posted, Jared Heyman said he got the iPhone 15 and Blackmagic app. Man, if the 15 and the Blackmagic app had been out, trust me, I would have been all over it, but they were not yet available. And I swear to you, I would have been so happy to have Blackmagic Raw. I love Blackmagic Raw. I think it's a great codec. I would have been tickled, and my life would have been 10 times easier. Our post would have been easier, but that wasn't available at the time, so we did what we did. So now you have a better, even better access to get to it. So once we went through, we were able to get the cuts. We had to dress everything up, spend the time on sound design. When we got back to Mobile, we decided to continue shooting it, as I mentioned, on the iPhone. There's one shot that is not, that would be a drone shot. We did use one drone shot. The rest of that spot is 100% shot on the iPhone. Using the Polar Pro rig here, I was able to mount it to a gimbal. I did mount it to a big boy gimbal. It wasn't a small cell phone gimbal. I wanted more stabilization, so we were able to mount it to a large gimbal. And then on top of it, as I said, the rig here local had to be built out for traditional commercial production. So not only did I have the moment lenses and everything set up, I also had, I had a G&E team and had other stuff to help me balance things out. And then I had wireless connected to it, so I could send the signal from the phone to a monitor, to a client monitor, so everybody could see the shots, everybody could get what they wanted, and we could work from there. We were talking about doing a dolly, but we decided the gimbal was stable enough, and it really turned out pretty great, and it worked very well for what we wanted to do. I'm going to show it one more time in here so you guys can see it, but again, I wanted to just use this as a moment to say, as filmmakers, as content creators, if you are out there trying to make stuff and you believe that only the camera is going to do it, this is evidence that it's not the camera, it's you, right? And so believe in your skills, learn your skill set, practice your skill set, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day what camera you're on. It matters how you use that camera. I know there's a euphemism for that somewhere out there. We all know that term for the guys with small shoes. But the point being, it is true. And you guys can do this. Anybody can get out there as long as you put the practice to play. Don't get stuck on the stupid camera stuff. It is one thing if you have a Gucci dripping camera, like it's just coated in all kinds of cool goodness, because again, you're watching the big filmmakers do that stuff. The reality of it is sometimes that matters, sometimes it doesn't. In the case of our instance, it didn't matter at all. The camera would have been an annoyance. It would have probably been very prohibitive. We were accosted multiple times by people down there asking for money. And the last thing you want to do is draw too much attention to yourself. So if you can think about it, just charge ahead and stay focused on your craft. Your craft is not a effing camera. Your craft is your eyeball, your skill set, your thinking, your creativity, your physical ability, your intellectual ability, your auditory ability. It's all of those pieces. It's your ability, yours to make. So again, the dirty secret, we just won best of show on an iPhone. Can't really say I thought that was going to ever come out of my mouth. Here's the spot, and I'll see you next time.